How to survive a selection? That's the wrong question. There was no system to beat, no strategy to follow. You could be young, skilled, healthy, and be dead within 5 minutes. Or clueless, confused, and still alive a year later. In Treblinka, survival wasn't a reward. It was a mistake. Let's begin with those who never stood a chance. The old, the disabled, the pregnant. These people were sentenced to death the moment they stepped off the train. They were pulled from the crowd and sent directly to the execution pit. Not even to the gas chambers. They were too slow to walk there. The same applied to the mentally ill, or those who had lost their minds in the overcrowded cattle cars. They were separated and shot in the so-called lazaret. If you survived that first selection, you had a chance, a small one, to live. Roughly 1% of new arrivals were chosen to work inside the camp. The rest were sent straight to the gas. That means, for every 1 man selected, 100 were sent to die. So, who were the chosen ones? Mostly young, strong men who could do hard labor. But not always. Once, the Nazis selected a frail young man holding an umbrella. Why? He was a medical student, and they needed someone to sort confiscated medications. Another time, they spared a 14-year-old boy holding an accordion. They thought he might provide some amusement. There were no clear rules in Treblinka, only luck. In other camps, having a skill might save your life. In Treblinka, it depended on timing. You could be a tailor, a carpenter, a surgeon, and die anyway. Or you could be good at lying and live. Quick thinking and connections were crucial. When Samuel Willenberg arrived, he recognized a friend among the camp inmates. "Tell the Germans you're a bricklayer," the man whispered. "They need one." Willenberg did, and was selected. The others from his transport? Straight to the gas. Yankiel Viernik was 54 when he arrived. Too old to be chosen. But he was smart. In the early months, the camp lacked structure. Prisoners wore their civilian clothes, without markings or IDs. So Viernik simply slipped in among the work squads. No one noticed. Chil Rashman was already naked and walking toward the gas chambers when he hid behind a pile of clothing. When the guards were gone, he got dressed and blended in with the workers. Does it mean the smartest survived? No. Others tried the same trick, but were seen, beaten, shot on the spot. In Treblinka, there was no formula, only luck. And luck ran out quickly. The Germans didn't like accidents. They liked order. After the chaotic first months, they created permanent work squads. Prisoners were given colored armbands and personal numbers. Capos, foremen, even a camp elder, were appointed to keep things running smoothly. There was no more slipping in. Only the Germans decided who lived or died. And they did. In the spring of 1943, thousands of Balkan Jews arrived. They were in excellent health, fit, strong, ready to work. Almost all were gassed immediately. Why? The camp didn't need more workers. Only 3 were spared. They spoke German, so the Nazis used them to translate orders for the others. Then they decided to let them live. Not because they were needed, not because they earned it, but because someone made a decision. The system chose, and they survived. But even the Nazi system had cracks. The newly formed Red Commando was tasked with helping the SS during selections. They also forced people to undress before gassing. Only the toughest men could serve in that unit, and many had criminal backgrounds. And now they had power. Some used it to save their gangster friends. Others took revenge on rivals. They pushed members of the Jewish police, who once held power over them, straight into the gas line. The roles had flipped. In the ghettos, it was the Jewish police who herded people into the trains. The policemen were often children of the rich. They might feel lucky for avoiding deportations for so long. But once they themselves arrived at Treblinka, they ran out of luck. The Reds held them accountable. Sometimes, even the SS themselves spared someone. Camp Commandant Franz Stengel recognized a Jew he had once known, named Blau. He and his wife were spared, and later became infamous collaborators. In another case, a prisoner recognized his sister among the newly arrived women. He asked his boss, SS man Franz Suchomel, to save her. Suchomel convinced his superiors that he needed one more woman for his squad. Her name was Branka Sukno. She survived until the end of the war. Women had far fewer chances than men. Unless the camp needed someone to cook, clean, or wash laundry, they were sent straight to the gas. There were almost no exceptions. Branka was one of them. And then there were the ironic selections. In October 1942, a young Czechoslovak named Rudolf Mazurek arrived. Tall, blonde, blue-eyed, he looked like the perfect Aryan. The Germans noticed immediately and spared him. He seemed like the perfect specimen. What they didn't know, he was an officer in the Czechoslovak army, and he would one day help lead the revolt. We'll tell his full story in a future episode. Another twist of irony came when the camp elder, Galewski, a man appointed by the Germans to keep order, used his position to save a friend, Samuel Reisman. Galewski came up to me and told me to move back. Paying no heed to the beating from the Ukrainians, I moved back, and then Galewski, accompanied by Scharführer Post, came up to me and said that he needed me for labor. Post examined me, assessed my physical strength, and allowed me to get dressed. I could not find my own clothes, so I put on the first garments I saw, and I set about carrying clothes. I started talking to Galewski during a lunch break, asking him why he had saved me, to which he replied that I should not delude myself that I would stay alive. He saved me because I was needed to set up an underground organization whose aim was to organize an uprising. Surviving the selection in Treblinka had no clean rules, no step-by-step manual. It came down to instinct, to being in the right place at the right time, or to someone else deciding you might be useful. For most, it was simply luck. But even those lucky few, even the 1 in 100, still had to survive the camp itself. In the next episode, we'll take a closer look at what that meant. Because, unlike Auschwitz, selections in Treblinka didn't happen once. They happened every day.